The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 12th chapter. Now someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. He thought to himself, "Well, what should I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool! This very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things that you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. All kinds of greed. All kinds of greed. There's not just one little simple type of greed. There's all kinds of greed. And it's not just our own greed that we have to be on guard. It's especially the greed of others. All kinds of greed of others that we have to be on guard against. But especially also in ourselves. The greed that wells up inside of ourselves, wanting what someone else has, wanting, greed. A little bit different than needing. But, okay. Let me begin with some humor. So there's a young man from Mississippi came running into the store and said to his buddy, "Bubba, someone just stole your truck from the parking lot." Bubba replied, "Well, did you see who it was?" The young man answered, "Well, I couldn't tell you, but I got his license number." Sometimes we're paying attention to the wrong thing. Sometimes we got our eye on this cup, and actually the ball was over in this one. Sometimes when we lose something, we realize we're paying attention to the wrong things to begin with. And Jesus is trying to remind us about what we need to pay attention to in our lives. The sons here, they needed some instruction before they came to this point where now they're arguing about the family inheritance. So I ask you, how many of you have your living wills done? How many of you have your medical directives, advanced directives prepared so that when it comes time that you need somebody to help, because you can't answer for yourself, you need someone else to make those decisions for you? You've already told them you want them to do it, and it's in writing, and the doctors can take their orders and they can help save your life if it is needed in that moment. Sometimes we need to prepare ahead of time. And in some ways, that's a simple answer to what's going on in Jesus' parables. Plan ahead. It'll make it a whole lot easier on the people after you. Plan ahead with what you want to happen with your estate, with your health, with your well-being. But that's a simple answer, because there's a lot more going on in this gospel. Because there's a lot more types of greed that are happening in our world that Jesus has to deal with, that Jesus has to warn us about, to remind us to be on our guard against, because it can come in like a thief in the night. Now, most of us probably have plenty of stuff. How many of you have stuff in your houses, homes, apartments? You got stuff? We got stuff. Even Abraham and Sarah had stuff. Last week we heard the story about them coming out of Sodom and Gomorrah with all their stuff, trying to run away from a group of bandits, robbers that were trying to take their stuff. They had to flee their cousin's home, Lot's home, in order to find safety and to keep their stuff. They had lots of stuff. It says in Genesis 13 that Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. Abraham knew what to collect. But like Abraham, we have to have an idea of what's going to happen in the future. We need a vision. We need something written down for the generations to remember what was at stake and what's really worth our attention in our lives. What is worth the abundance of possessions? Is it worth our lives to stake our lives on a wallet? Is it worth our lives to protect our home and our possessions if we lose our lives? And Jesus is asking us to wonder about this. What's more important, possessions or people? And this isn't something that we just answer once and we're good for the rest of our lives. We have to answer this over and over again. Do we want cheap food or do we want healthy people to work in the fields? What do we want? We want cheap plastic products that are going to destroy rivers, lakes, oceans? Or do we want to be responsible with our long-term goals and what we want for our future? Do we want something to hand down from generation to generation that's going to be non-toxic? Something that is healthy and life-giving? Jesus says one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Seriously, Jesus pities the fool that loves possessions more than people. We hear this word in here, fool. And coming from the A-team, Jesus pities the fool who loves possessions more than people. At least 2 of the 10 commandments, that's 1 and 5, has to do with greed for what others have. Jesus says, do not let your guard down. And what I've found over the years, 15 years of preaching, I guess, as Ramona was saying, is that often there's a prescience going on in Scripture. There's something going on in Scripture that I need to be reminded about that week or over those courses of days that I need to be paying attention to. 2 million homes in the U.S. are broken into every year. 2 million homes broken into every year. And we all know someone who's been burglarized. Family jewels stolen. Jewels that were more important, worth something to us because of the connection to our family members, the connection, the emotional connections, not just the monetary greed connections. During 1 in 3 home burglaries, someone is home. A family member is home during 1 in 3 home burglaries. Aaliyah walked in on a burglar. This was when her parents were living in Redondo Beach, but she came home from classes one day and found a burglar ransacking the home. She chased him out, she says. He still got off with something. They're everywhere. Last week, here in this sanctuary, a burglar walked through the back and put the fear of God in a lot of people back there when they saw this guy lurking. Let me just show you a picture of this guy. Because when I look closer at the pictures, this guy had 5 purses around his shoulder. Let me see if I can bring up a picture. I know it's going to be a small picture, but let me just show you. This is while I'm talking about Abram and Sarah having to flee Sodom because of this violent burglars coming to take their possessions. This guy right here. If you look on the side of the right side, there's a bunch of straps over his arm. There were at least 5 purses. I don't know where he came from, but this guy right here came through the back of our church while I'm preaching last week. I saw him later down at the bus stop, just before he got on the bus, ransacking through the purses still there. But what can we hold on to for dear life that gives us life? What is worth our lives, staking our lives on? Is it our purses? Is it worth losing our life over a possession? Sometimes we'll be in that frame of mind, but on a better day, with better judgment, with some forethought, we're not going to risk our lives for our wallet. On the wrong day, at the wrong time, we are. So let's be prepared. Let's talk about what other burglaries have happened here in the church. Talking about greed, all kinds of greed. The mixing board was stolen from our church several years ago. You wouldn't be able to hear me preach without the mixing board. They came in and stole and they stole the chimes out of the corner there. You see those chimes? Those aren't the original chimes from 20 years ago. We had to buy those. We had a bike, a $2,000 bike of ours stolen out of this church. We had our home burglarized, broken. They broke the front door in half. They kicked the front door in half in order to get in and steal a couple of rings and some cash from our home, causing more damage to the door. Replacing the door was thousands of dollars. I remember when my family was in Spain, on the beach. We were all still naive and enjoying our vacation. Mom put her wedding jewelry or wedding pearls in her bag underneath the cot that she was lying on the beach. And while they're still lying there hanging on the beach, someone stole it right from underneath her nose. My sister was sleeping on the cot with the bags tucked underneath her, and somehow they still got the bags. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, not just our own, but be on your guard. Protect yourselves, people. And don't leave stuff in your cars. Please don't leave bags and wallets and stuff in your cars. It's going to get broken into. Not by me. I don't have that kind of greed, but somebody else does, and I need to be on guard. I have my own kinds of greed. Not that kind of greed. I don't want to hurt people with my greed, but that makes me perhaps different, or just another one of these people that Jesus is talking to, that I need to watch out for my own signs of greed, but I need to especially be on the guard against others. When we lived in Connecticut, I was pastor there for 5 years. We had a break-in there. Actually, even before that, one of the first churches I was serving, car got broken into in the parking lot. But then, while I'm serving in Connecticut, I come out of the parsonage, which was across the street from the church, one morning to find the front door glass is broken. And there's all these pry marks around this old CD player in this old 80s car. And the pry marks were from a silver cross that I had in the glove compartment of the car. They took the silver cross and tried to pry a stereo out with a silver cross. They bent the cross and ripped it in one part. The cross was worth twice as much as anything in the car, let alone the stereo. They left it. But I learned my lesson now, though. Now, you see this cross here? It's got a bend in it already, so you can't get anything out with it. This is the Ethiopian cross, so it bends. Anyway, I learned my lesson. That cross will forever remind me about sometimes we have something in our hands, we don't realize how valuable it really is. Like communion, like Holy Communion, we don't think about how valuable this message of forgiveness, this message of Jesus' communion with us, how valuable it is in our lives. Give us this day our daily bread. Remember this when you come and receive communion, that God's blessing is there. It's in your hands. God's blessing is in those words. God's blessing is in your heart. As our second reading says, Christ is all and in all. Think of the goodness of God, of the life-giving goodness of God, nourishing our hearts, nourishing ourselves, our souls, reminding ourselves to value something which seems worthless. Just a tiny little wafer, just a tiny little bit of grape juice. It seems like water, just water. He's dropping a bucket. We're taught to refocus our minds on things that seem worthless to the world but are of great value in God's promises. Promises to us, promises for generations of people, promises that have been written down so that we have a record of our family history as the people of God, as the family of God, so that we don't lose it, so that it can't be stolen from us, so that it can't be taken away from us, these promises, these gifts that God gives to us through our spirit, which no one can take away from us. But sometimes we forget, and we're focused on the wrong thing. So let me tell you one more joke here. One late night, Murphy was walking home when all of a sudden a thief jumped on him. Murphy and the thief began to wrestle. They rolled around on the ground. Murphy put up a tremendous fight. However, the thief managed to get the better of him, pinned him to the ground, and then the thief went through Murphy's pockets and found 25 cents. The thief was so surprised that Murphy had put up such a bother for 25 cents. He said, "What, was that all you wanted?" Murphy replied, "I thought you were after the $100 in my shoe." We don't have to give everything away to others either, right? We can be on our guard against the greed of others. When my mother lost her wedding jewelry, when it was stolen from my family, and this has happened to many people. I know my family's not alone. My wife's best friend, all their family jewels are stolen a couple years ago out of their house. How many of you have had something stolen? I thought I would see everybody's hand up, but okay. Maybe you forgot something. But these things, even as important as they are, even my mom's wedding ring that was stolen is not the marriage. The wedding ring symbolized something. It reminded them of something, but it was not the marriage. We put our love into people, not possessions, as Christians. We put our trust in people, in the Son of God, and not in an idol or in a possession that we can control or can be lost or stolen. We put our trust in the person of God. We put our trust in God's worth in our lives. Because nothing can equal the worth of that love in our lives. Christians love people more than possessions. Amen. Please rise and let's sing our hymn of the day. In Christ there is no east or west.